Welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're doing something a bit different. We're immersing ourselves in a really powerful story. It's called The Silent Ascent, Honor on K2. And it's not just about, climbing a mountain. It gets into how one person's actions, their quiet strength, can really conquer despair, injustice,
Yeah.
even silence itself.
Right. And what's so compelling, I think, is how the storytelling itself works here. It becomes this vehicle for understanding some pretty profound truths about human nature, sacrifice, dignity, things we don't always see.
Exactly.
We'll be looking at how this one man's actions, even though he's mostly silent in the narrative, managed to reshape everything.
Yeah, so our mission today is to kind of pull out those key insights from this really gripping account, not just what happened, but why people made the choices they did on, the world's deadliest mountain, and also how the telling of that story, the narrative choices, amplify its impact. Because this is where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
So to really get this story, we need to understand the setting first. K2. The source material doesn't pull any punches. It calls it the deadliest known to humankind, responsible for claiming more souls than any other.
That's stark.
It is. It paints this picture of just extreme, unforgiving conditions, things like ice cracked beneath their boots, oxygen masks froze.
Wow.
Men staggered, falling into silence that swallowed their names forever. It's brutal imagery.
And it's not just a backdrop, is it? The way it's described, K2 feels almost like a character itself, an antagonist.
Totally.
Descriptions like a wall of white swallowed the climbers, or boots sank into snow that felt more like a grave shroud.
Grave shroud.
And the wind howling against frozen lungs. It just immediately gives you this gut feeling of danger, like an invisible, cruel enemy. It's not your typical battlefield where you see the opponent.
No, definitely not. The framing there is so important. The source even says flat out, this was no climb. It was a battle between life and the deadliest mountain.
Implying something much deeper than just physical climbing.
Right. And it's in this environment, this almost sentient place of peril, that we meet the central figure. A man the story introduces as known only by his quiet resolve.
And that's a deliberate narrative choice, isn't it? Not giving him a name, defining him by that core quality.
It seems like it. He's a veteran, a soldier, carried the weight of both survival and loss long before he ever saw K2. His scars weren't just skin deep, they were buried in the silence of his gaze.
That description alone tells you so much. It signals this inner strength forged by something more than just physical hardship, something profound from his past.
So it makes you wonder, what perspective does someone like that, someone who's seen actual battlefields, bring to this kind of challenge, where the enemy is, like you said, invisible?
Well, the source kind of tackles that. It notes he had seen battlefields before, yet even there, the enemy had a face. Here, the enemy was invisible.
A different kind of war.
Exactly, and it suggests that this shift from a visible enemy to this sort of ambient, constant threat really shapes his whole approach. The narrative uses his background to anchor his actions.
How so?
It digs into his motivation. Years before, he'd lost comrades in battle, made a promise to himself, basically, that he wouldn't waste the life they had given him. So for him, climbing wasn't about bagging a peak. It became his prayer, each step a silent tribute. It reframes the whole thing. It's remembrance.
Not glory.
Not at all. The mountain becomes this place, as the source puts it, where honor met cruelty. A testing ground for that internal promise against, brutal reality. The storytelling connects his personal grief right to the physical struggle. Every step means something.
So the entire climb, for him, it's an act of honor, a living memorial.
Precisely.
And this is where the drama kicks in. The expedition leaders.
Yeah.
They had a completely different view.
Oh, yeah. A stark contrast.
The source says they demanded speed, demanded silence about the dangers ahead. Their focus, not survival, it was glory. Flags, photos, records, these were their gods.
And the narrative doesn't just tell us this, it shows it. You have the veteran, focused on memory, on duty, and then you have these leaders obsessed with, the superficial prize.
Right.
And the story really builds the tension by showing the injustice growing. The veteran sees faulty ropes dangling like traps, oxygen supplies miscounted, climbers too weak being pushed forward against their own will. It's presented as more than just mistakes. It's a willful disregard for life, a total failure of leadership.
And the source adds this chilling detail. He watched as others ignored the cries of a struggling climber stepping past him in pursuit of the summit.
Just walked past.
Yeah. And then this line, the veteran's silence screamed louder than any protest.
That phrasing.
Wow. It really is powerful, isn't it? Silence screamed. It captures the paradox. Others were maybe quiet out of fear. Fear disguised as obedience, the source says.
But his silence, the narrative frames it as something active, moral, his unshakable defiance. It wasn't fear holding him back. It was his own code. He refused to participate in what was happening.
A different kind of strength.
Much harder, arguably, than just shouting.
So, okay, he's silent in protest, but not passive. Not at all. As the storm hits, the leader's bad calls really start to bite.
Yeah, the consequences become clear.
The source mentions oxygen tanks hidden, reserved for those at the top of the hierarchy.
Wow, really?
Yeah, and ropes that should have been secured dangled loose. Simple safety measures ignored, and the veteran knew, it says, each flaw could cost lives. It's this picture of a leadership totally disconnected from the danger.
And this really makes you think about leadership under pressure, doesn't it? We expect leaders to be vocal, maybe authoritative, but here the leader's driven by ego. Their choices are destructive.
Yeah.
And the story highlights this by contrasting them with the veteran's quiet actions. He left no one behind. Small things like steadying a younger climber, clearing frost off someone's mask, without a word.
No fanfare.
None. Just quiet acts of basic humanity. And when others mocked his pace, apparently he didn't defend himself. He just lived by that idea. Dignity needs no defense. Sacrifice speaks without sound.
This is quite a philosophy to live by up there.
It really is. And it becomes this powerful counter-narrative to all the noise about glory and speed.
Okay, so then comes the moment of truth in the story. The storm hits hard.
Yeah.
It broke climbers one by one. And the leaders, the ones chasing glory,
Yep.
they collapsed.
Yeah.
Their ambition meant nothing against the mountain's will. The mountain just stripped it all away.
It's the narrative payoff, right? The great equalizer. Suddenly, the source says, those who had ignored the veteran now looked to him, desperate, terrified, broken.
The tables turned completely.
Completely. The mountain's indifference just exposed how hollow their leadership, their ambition really was. It reveals who people really are when everything falls apart. The storytelling feels almost like a parable here.
Yeah. And in that chaos, that blinding white, the source says the silent man became the guide. Without demand, without lecture, he placed others before himself. He adjusted masks, secured knots, and pulled men from the brink of the abyss. His silence transforms. It becomes command.
It's classic emergent leadership. Authority wasn't given to him, he earned it through sheer consistency and selflessness.
Right.
And the narrative is careful to say, without demand, without lecture. It emphasizes that his leadership wasn't about power. It was about service, about unwavering principle in a crisis. A huge contrast to the earlier demands of the leaders.
And there are these moments, these lines in the source that just define him. Someone asks him basically, why keep going when everything's falling apart?
Yeah.
His answer, simple, profound. Because I walk with those who no longer can.
Wow. That sums it all up, doesn't it? It connects everything, his past loss, his promise, his actions right there on the slope.
Totally.
It shows that his strength wasn't just physical endurance. It was, like the source says, spiritual, driven by memory, by responsibility. That one line tells you his whole purpose.
And then the summit, the symbolic peak. He doesn't plant a flag for a country or a sponsor.
Oh, what does he do?
He takes out the faded cloth of his fallen comrade and places it in the snow
Oh, wow.
and whispers, honor is not shouted, it is remembered. Just chills. That quiet act up there.
That's the climax of his story, isn't it? The ultimate statement. The flag wasn't for a nation, but of a fallen friend. The whole climb, it says, was never about glory. It was about memory, honor, and the unshakable bond of sacrifice.
Yeah.
His endurance wasn't physical, it was spiritual. That act, seen only by the mountain itself, redefines victory. It's not conquest, it's remembrance. The story shows how the quietest, most unseen act can be the most powerful.
And the resolution, the payoff back with the survivors, really lands that point. They were once divided by arrogance and fear, but now they stood in silence around him, heads bowed, not in defeat, but in respect.
That image, the shared silence, it says more than any medal or speech could. That's the real measure of his impact. He hadn't conquered K2, the source reminds us, no one truly ever did. But he had conquered despair, injustice, and the negative kind of silence. The mountain, just this once, bore witness to dignity unbroken. It's not just survival, it's about how you survive and who you are in that moment.
So taking this away from K2, what does this story, this narrative mean for us?
Well, the source points out that the survivors' own stories changed afterwards. They stopped talking about records and flags.
What did they talk about?
They talked about the man whose silence had saved them. His name or his story spread. Not because he pushed it, but because, as the source puts it, silence has a way of echoing louder than any shout.
That's a great line. It really reinforces that idea that respect isn't demanded from the crowd, it's carried by the few who endure.
Yeah, this deep dive really shows that this arguably the deadliest mountain expedition in history wasn't ultimately remembered for the glory chasers. It was remembered for the one who carried honor. It forces us to ask, where does real strength come from? How do we measure impact? Often, maybe, it's in the quiet, understated things. The way the story is told, focusing on the unspoken, the internal journey. That's why it hits so hard.
It's definitely a powerful reminder that our actions, especially the ones driven by integrity, can echo way beyond what we might think, even if they start silently.
Absolutely. So maybe here's a final thought to take away from this. In a world that's often, let's face it, pretty loud, full of shouted claims and visible achievements,
Yeah.
how often do we miss the quiet acts? The unseen strength that really moves mountains.
Good question.
Because maybe we're just too focused on the noise. So how can you, in your own life, maybe practice or even just recognize that true strength that is silent, true honor that is unseen, and true sacrifice that never dies?
Something to definitely reflect on. Thank you for joining us on this unforgettable deep dive into the silent ascent. We really hope this story leaves you with something meaningful.
Yeah.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and maybe keep an eye out for those quiet moments of strength.